all making and forging our own paths in the histories that we know.
How does it feel to be creating that history with your family and just existing in today's age and creating history?
You know, I don't really know how that history feels yet. I'm so invested in the present. Because you kind of get lost sometimes and you look too far in forward or in back. I know you have to, so you know where you're going sometimes. But like sometimes I'm just so involved in the present, I don't even get to like feel the gravity of it. Like I was the first one to graduate from university in my family.
I believe that I'm contributing to Black history by not just existing, but contributing.
But like thinking of an organized way to streamline how people can interact with it. The same way that we get information from Instagram for how to check in with our friends, how to check in with whatever is going on in the world. How do we check in to care and show love for community consistently?
The act of just existing is simply not enough. We have to contribute, we have to give back, we have to mentor, we have to provide a shoulder, we have to provide advice.
I think oftentimes, even when we talk about like Black history, so many of like the people that we thought were like amazing, like we don't really realize like how young they were, right? And how they weren't even possibly aware of like the impact that they would have like decades later. And, just that they were just people living their lives, like much like we are.
When I was growing up, the biggest person that I was inspired by that Black history pushes out is Malcolm X. He just was so many different versions of himself. The good, the bad, the explorative, and I don't think especially Black men are able to like experience that much of emotion and truth. We kind of gotta hide a lot of it to this day.
I never really think about Blackness in the past tense, because that's what I think about when you say history. It's like the past tense. I think it's just a continuation of the same things. Like
a lot of folks don't really dig deep into the true purpose of what those folks who had laid the groundwork and the blueprint for us to continue learning from and to run with. That's what testimony and history really should be. But with the white supremacist framework that we've got, the victor is always the one that frames what history looks like.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about Black history in schools and institutions, like, that's just for the white gaze, like, and like white people have like a handful of Negroes that they're comfortable with, and we just we rotate those stories. Because that's what makes white people comfortable.
So I'm always challenging myself, challenging others too, through my journey and learning new things, which, if people follow me, they'll understand what I'm getting at here, but to really dig deeper and think about that blueprint and how do we lift it in our own ways. So as a performer, how do you shed light on making change like our predecessors did, and like actually give light to what our ancestors had laid for us to do today, and think about the future too.
When we talk about like who inspires you and who encourages you, I think the most awesome part of my life is that it started in my house, and I think when you have parents that love you, that love all of you, and that encourage you that you can be anything in the world, then you really can go out there with that confidence and feel like, I really can be anything in the world that I want to be. That I realized like as I got older was that for me, wellness had been in my life like this whole time and I just didn't realize it. I remember being a kid, I was like obsessed with A Baby Story, and they were like the women that were like having kids in pools. I remember being like 10 years old and I was like, Mom, when I have a kid, I'm having a kid in water. And she was like, girl, if you don't shut up, like, what do you mean?
I do believe that within the public school system, we could do a lot more to educate our kids, and not just about the downfalls of our people or not just about the hardships, because that's important as well too. You need that foundation. You need to learn about where you came from, as the older folks would say, to know where you're going. but I definitely do believe that we should reshape the curriculum and give a little bit of the past and give a little bit of the current and actually show these kids what their lives could look like in the future and how they could make Black history.
We're all sorts of things, and we're like afraid to embrace that. So I think it would be healing to like focus on all that we are. But I mean, how can we do that if it's like one Black history? Because that's again like a past tense thing and very hyper focused on achievement and accomplishment and excellence, because we're not allowed to be anything else in public, because we're like protecting ourselves from what white people think. And white people are imposing what they think on us every day.
Honestly, I was in this place in my life where I had just a few years of just a whole bunch of mess. College was not what I thought it was gonna be. I thought I was gonna have a time of my life, and it was extremely traumatic. I was finding myself just in places that I didn't think I was gonna be. And I started going to therapy, and therapy changed everything for me. And I felt like I had just become this person that I didn't recognize, but in a good way. And I started writing about my experiences, writing about my life, writing about how I felt. And people resonated with that in a really, really cool way. One of the things that people kept saying to me was they loved how I was so transparent. And so I thought like, okay, I should create something for other people to feel like it's okay to be transparent, like it's okay to own every part of themselves, even parts of themselves that they might necessarily not be so confident about or embarrassed about, right? I think so often in society, women are expected to feel, I guess like they have to fit into boxes. And I just didn't feel like I fit into any of them. And so I created a community to honor those women, and that just blossomed into a wellness space, a healing space for women to heal from the things that they had experienced just like I had, through my writing, and just also to encourage them and make them feel confident on that journey, to know that it was okay to not necessarily know what it meant to have access to wellness, to have access to like boundary setting and just putting themselves first and building really cool lives that they could be, be and feel good about.
The above, we all have this calling that is supposed to move the human condition forward, and actually strive for us to lean into love. The same love that we have for our art is the love that we want to bring into the world outside us. So that's something that I found for myself in 2020, and want to invite folks on that journey, because it's not easy to choose your art. I'm choosing my art and hosting on the side, and also founding a nonprofit around that same time. So not only did I find my purpose in art in 2020, but I also founded a nonprofit, which totally blew my own expectations of things that I can give birth to. Whether beyond the art, I think of it as a creative project myself too, because I do know the power of art to inspire folks.
I do make music for people like me, because I'm not the only one. I'm not special. This is like what we all dealing with. You go on Twitter, and it's like every woman on there gonna tell you how some man done situations shipped her to death, or something. The rent too damn high. It's like we all live in the same thing, and I'm just talking about it.
The first time, like one of the first shoots that I did, that I posted on Tumblr, went viral. It was with a friend of mine named Sage Causey, amazing photographer. And all the messages that I started getting kind of let me know like the power that I could possibly have and influence I could possibly have on people. And they would just let me know that you can explore yourself in different ways. Wear different things, be a little bit more gentle with yourself. It doesn't have to always be all like street gangster, especially like, depending on where you're from. Especially if you're from the hood, you don't really get to see people showcase themselves in a vulnerable sense.
But really thinking critically about how we can show up in full love for one another. Because the same way that I leaned on my own community to pull me up from the dregs when I left my family's religion. Once I left, I didn't have people to turn to except my chosen family in the arts.
As a metal artisan, it's a really special thing for me to figure out new ways to interact with metal. And as I mentioned before, my dad's influence was really big on my artistry and me figuring out what the medium is that I would explore further.
What is art supposed to be doing? It's supposed to be moving movements forward, which it always has. Like I think of the 70s, you think of Black Power, you think of how that was pervasive in all of the art spaces that were surrounding it to push that movement forward. I feel like I've been seeing less and less of that as time has gone on, and I came across a quote by Tony Cade Bambara, which was, "The role of the artist is to make the revolution irresistible." And I've been walking in that path ever since.